What is poppin' YouTube? Back again with another video. We are going over my top 36 players for fantasy football in 2023, breaking it down by tiers. Let's go. The first tier we're going to be talking about is Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, CMC. We got two elite level wide receivers with an elite level bell cow legendary type upside running back, which makes me super excited if you get one of those top 3 picks in your fantasy football draft. Now, Justin Jefferson's on par to kind of break a ton of records set by Randy Moss as one of these elite level young wide receivers. Jamar Chase has high touchdown upside, playing in the Bengals offense, paired with Joe Burrow, young stud quarterback. We're super excited about that. And of course, CMC can get the work, has shown that he can get the work. Can he stay healthy this season? That's what makes me really excited about CMC, because even last year, amazing points per game finish for CMC again, and put him in the San Francisco 49ers offense. We are excited to see how this goes. Now, moving on to our mid-first tier, we have Cooper Kupp, Tyreek Hill, Bijan Robinson, Travis Kelce. Now, I think the debate can be made whether you're taking Tyreek Hill or Cooper Kupp. It's kind of just a matter of preference. Do you like Cooper Kupp, more of the slot wide receiver who's going to get a ton of receptions, or Tyreek Hill, who's going to have absolutely game-wrecking games? The reason I have Cooper Kupp, even last season before he got injured, he was the wide receiver 1 on a points per game basis before he got hurt. So I believe that Cooper Kupp is in for another bounce back season, but he is a wide receiver over 30 with this injury that is still lingering, this hammy issue. So I understand if you take Tyreek Hill first, but this is why they're in the same tier. Then we have Bijan Robinson, another legendary upside type running back that I'm targeting in the mid-first round if these other two guys are off the board. And then I have Travis Kelce. Now, I know a lot of people love to get that tight end advantage over maybe a guy like Bijan Robinson. I think the upside for Bijan Robinson is a little bit higher than Travis Kelce, but of course, getting that overall tight end 1 in your tight end spot is a huge position to have. So depending on how you view that, I totally hear you if you want Travis Kelce over Bijan Robinson. That's why I have him in the same tier. Now, moving on to the end of the first, we have just a big giant tier of guys. We have Austin Ekeler, Stefon Diggs, Ceedee Lamb, AJ Brown, and Garrett Wilson. And you guys can kind of just pick your pick, whoever you like out of that group for me. Of course, I put Austin Ekeler first because if you, especially you're an old head, you love drafting these running backs in the first round. I don't necessarily love his upside compared to Bijan Robinson or CMC, but when we're talking about the next available running back, of course, it's going to be Austin Ekeler with that high touchdown upside and those high reception numbers. I think the reception numbers are going to go a little bit down this year. That's why I have him behind those other guys. But then we talk wide receivers. I mean, Stefon Diggs, I know there's all these reports out of camp that you might be a little bit unhappy. CeeDee Lamb, of course, great wide receiver. AJ Brown, Garrett Wilson, up and comer. A lot of potential there. So you kind of can just take your pick on which offense you like, because I think all those guys are going to finish around each other. And so that's why I have them all kind of in that end first tier. Moving on to our early second tier, we're going to be looking at Amon-Ra St. Brown, Devontae Adams, Saquon Barkley, Tony Pollard, Nick Chubb, and Jalen Waddle. Now, I do think I put all these guys into tier because I do think this is like the first part of the second round. But if I was to really be choosing, I'd be choosing it exactly in this order. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Devontae Adams, I think should be going at the early part of the second. They are definitely first round caliber wide receivers. And you could honestly be making the case for Amon-Ra St. Brown over Garrett Wilson, over AJ Brown if you really wanted to. I just prefer those guys over Amon-Ra. Then we look at running backs. We have Saquon Barkley, Tony Pollard, and Nick Chubb. And I've been in a ton of drafts where we've been seeing Saquon Barkley and Chubb go in the first. I think Tony Pollard also has legendary running back upside. So I do love Tony Pollard in the early second. I think Saquon Barkley might quote unquote be a little bit safer, but if you're chasing upside, Tony Pollard is going to be the guy for you. But I do like Saquon Barkley, of course. His elite level upside with the Giants being their overall bell cow. And then we round that tier out in the early second with Jalen Waddle playing wide receiver 2 to Tyreek Hill. We saw the high points per game, the Waddle, the penguin dance. It's amazing. And we could finally see the full breakout with Jalen Waddle. If we look at the splits with Tua, without Tua, of course, without Tua was a little bit rough, but we do like us some Jalen Waddle. We do love some Jalen Waddle in the middle of the second. Moving on to kind of the back end of the second, we have these 6 players. So we have Chris Olave, Mark Andrews, Josh Jacobs, Patrick Mahomes, Derrick Henry, and Jalen Hurts. And like I said, these are tier rankings. So if you're looking at this and you say, Caleb, I honestly prefer Josh Jacobs over Mark Andrews, I wouldn't hate you. I do think Chris Olave definitely leads off this tier. High-end wide receiver 1 type upside for Chris Olave. Mark Andrews, you get a positional advantage in the second round instead of having to draft Travis Kelce in the first round. Josh Jacobs in the second feels like an absolute steal based on how he performed last season. We're a little bit worried about, of course, the holdout with the contract situation, but getting him in the back end of the second does feel great. Then we look at Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, and Derrick Henry. So if you prefer to draft running back and you're like, Caleb, I'm not interested in any of these quarterbacks in the back end of the second, totally go Derrick Henry. But I do think Patrick Mahomes and Jalen Hurts, their points per game differential makes them really good values at the end of the second, especially like if you're able to all of a sudden start your draft and you have Jamar Chase and Patrick Mahomes to start your lineup. That's going to feel really great on a week-to-week basis. Moving on to the early third, we have Josh Allen starting off this tier, and you could honestly make the case, Josh Allen's my QB3, but you could make the case that Josh Allen should be in the same exact tier as Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts. Same type upside, both rushing and passing. I think there's just some more questions about the offense for the Bills with Stefon Diggs kind of requesting to trade / we don't know what that situation is going to be like. Kind of gives me a little bit of worry when we're talking about these three guys that should probably be in the same tier, but I'm just going to bump Josh Allen down here for now. Then we got Jahmyr Gibbs, and if you watched my video yesterday, you know that I think Jahmyr Gibbs is a legendary type running back, and so I also love targeting that type of upside in the third round. No, he's a rookie. No, we haven't seen anything of him, but he does have the perfect skill set to absolutely light your fantasy football leagues on fire. Then we go with Devontae Smith, wide receiver 2 to AJ Brown. The Eagles were a little bit lower of a passing attempt team last season, so that makes me a little bit worried, but even though they were a lower passing attempt team, Devontae Smith still put up super solid fantasy points, so you do have to take him there, especially when wide receivers are flying off the board super early in drafts. If you went heavy RB, getting Devontae Smith as your wide receiver 1, as your wide receiver 2 feels pretty good. Then we have Jonathan Taylor, and I've been talking about Jonathan Taylor as a pretty good value right now when you're able to get him in the third round. When you're able to get Jonathan Taylor, I know we don't know what's happening with the injury. There's a lot in flux. It feels like a risky pick, but if Jonathan Taylor wasn't injured right now, we'd be talking about Jonathan Taylor in the early second to the back end of the first. And so being able to get this value with all the question marks still feels great. Then rounding out the early part of the third, we have T. Higgins and Calvin Ridley. T. Higgins paired with Joe Burrow. We saw the points per game, like how high he can get. But the thing that we need to understand is we need to see a little bit more consistency. So that is why I have T. Higgins right here. And then of course have Calvin Ridley. A lot of people are scared to draft Calvin Ridley this season, but pair him with Trevor Lawrence, high upside. We've seen in the past that he has finished as a wide receiver 4 overall. And if he can get back to those same type numbers the season after being suspended all last season, great value for you in the third. Perfect shot to take some risk with Calvin Ridley. And then rounding out our top 36, we're going to go at the end of the third. We have Travis Etienne, Keenan Allen, TJ Hockenson, Breece Hall, Rhamondre Stevenson, Aaron Jones, and then DK Metcalf. Now, first, let's talk about Travis Etienne. Why am I taking Travis Etienne over Breece Hall? Really, for me, Travis Etienne, I know he's going to be in a committee with Tank Bigsby, but we saw Travis Etienne was super efficient. And just like I like Calvin Ridley, because I think the Jags offense is going to take a next step. When you have a great offense, you want running backs in that great offense. And Travis Etienne, to me, I do like getting him in the back end of the third, especially considering the fact that he's fallen a little bit compared to where he was going earlier this offseason, where he's going more in that early third category. And we have Keenan Allen with Justin Herbert, with Kellen Moore. We know this offense is going to be absolutely explosive. I love me some QJ later on, but Keenan Allen has been the mode of consistency. And we look at his splits last season from weeks like 11 to 15. Keenan Allen was a top 5 wide receiver on a points per game basis. So for me, address Keenan Allen. I know we're always worried about age. We're always worried about the hamstrings, but great value here at the end of the third. Then we go with TJ Hockenson. I think TJ Hockenson, you're probably going to be able to get him in the fourth, but if it's the end of the third and I'm looking at my lineup and I can get that positional advantage at tight end, when TJ Hockenson is going to be an absolute target hog. We saw what happened when he's flipped from the Detroit Lions to the Minnesota Vikings. All of a sudden, this dude became literally the tight end 2 almost overnight. When you're talking, like, I love me some Mark Andrews. I love that he's paired with Lamar Jackson. We've seen that elite level upside. We started to see that upside from TJ Hockenson, and you're getting that almost a whole round later. So I do love TJ Hockenson here. Then we're going to move on to Breece Hall and Rhamondre Stevenson. So what happened to both these running backs? Breece Hall is coming off an ACL, but you also add in the fact that both these guys had free agent running backs added into their rooms here recently with Zeke Elliott for Rhamondre Stevenson, Dalvin Cook for Breece Hall with the Jet, which is just going to mean that they're not going to be the absolute bell cow. They're going to be splitting the backfield even when Breece Hall is fully back healthy. And so I still love the upside. I still love the talent, the running back, because if Breece Hall was fully healthy and was not having anyone in the backfield to compete with touches, we're talking about Breece Hall at the back end of the first, early second. And now you're getting him at the back end of the third, just based on his current situation. If we believe the Jets offense is going to be as elite as we think it's going to be, because I love me some Garrett Wilson, I do think Breece Hall is going to benefit to some extent. So being able to get him in that top 36 picks is going to be essential for your team, especially if you went like wide receiver, being able to add Breece Hall at the back end feels great. Aaron Jones and then DK Metcalf. Aaron Jones, I see he's still going to be, he has always just been an elite level fantasy football producer. If he continue to do that this next season, that is going to be exciting with Jordan Love. Jordan Love has looked better in the preseason than many of us have expected. I was in on the Jordan Love train, but we will see how this pans out for Aaron Jones. But I think running back wise, this is where it starts to kind of take a cliff off of the values that I like. You might be saying, Caleb, where's Najee Harris on this list? He's not on my list. He's not on my top 36 overall players for fantasy football. And rounding out my top 36 is DK Metcalf. If you would have told me 2 or 3 days ago DK Metcalf was going to make this list for me, I would have told you you're crazy. I've been out on DK Metcalf. But all of a sudden, add in the fact that JSN, who we absolutely love, just had surgery on his wrist off of that preseason game, which is just terrible to see this man get hurt. DK Metcalf all of a sudden goes sliding back up the boards because we don't know at what point JSN is going to come in and directly have that target competition. So if we're talking DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett again for the first 3 to 4 weeks, all of a sudden, I do like DK Metcalf over some of these other guys where we can kind of project that overall volume. So let me know, did this help you? Did these top 36 rankings help you as you're looking at your first 3 rounds of your fantasy football leagues? Let me know down below. Feel free to use these rankings. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and we'll catch you guys on the video tomorrow. Peace.